Hello and welcome to Attagalata. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Very good.
Hi. So it gives me immense pleasure to be talking to Captain Sahana Sundar today. Captain Sahana Sundar has worked in one of the India's largest youth organizations called NCC. She's been serving this organization as a captain for almost 32 years. And it's a great opportunity for me to be talking to her as an author today. Her transition from being a captain in a military organization to becoming an author of such a reputed book today called Anand is nothing more than phenomenal for me. You know, these are two different and distinct, what I would say, paths in a person's life, wherein a person goes through a career in a military organization and then transitions himself to become a literary person. There are two distinct things for me. Military demands a lot of, discipline and all of the things that are associated with the military organization. However, literary space requires you to be in a different space of mind or a creative space of mind. And I love this combination of her being a captain and an author today. So welcome you, Sahana, and very happy to be sharing the space with you and talking to you. It really means a great thing for me.
Thank you, Tejaswini, for your kind words and the lovely introduction.
Thank you. Sahana actually transitioned from being captain in the military organization to an author, and then she created a platform not just for a few people. It is a writers guild for almost 200 and odd authors, and this really amazes me. Her personality to bring in people from different regions all through the country, right? So there are a lot of authors across the country and internationally as well. So this is it's a rare writing platform wherein authors put out anthologies or their own published self books. So she also has transitioned from being just a writer to a publisher herself, and this is seemingly a very great achievement for any person. So that is what I look at it. So now would you just like to add a few words into your journey from being a captain to an author?
So, Tejaswini, I'm born into a literature family because my father, I have seen during my childhood, my father always holding a pen and a paper, and he has given witty clues and very intelligent clues for almost every word in the Kannada dictionary. The way he used to create those clues always inspired me. I was helping him out, and he was a journalist. Moreover, he wrote many books, and he also directed many films. So coming from that kind of a background, in the childhood itself, somewhere in the corner of my mind, I had a desire to be an author or a writer. So maybe that was there, but it only surfaced during my 48th year when I started writing small poems. And these poems were received very well by the audience. I used to write for allpoetry.com and also for writing.com. And I got very good comments that really inspired me to eventually write the book Anand. So maybe in my 55th year, I wrote this book Anand.
So this journey has been really good. Transitioning yourself from being just a poetry, from poetry to a novel, a full-fledged novel. This is really nice. Yeah, so talking of Anand, right? So how did this concept or idea behind Anand evolve? Why did you think you should put down Anand?
Yeah, the day when Siddhartha Hegde, the owner of Cafe Coffee Day, journeyed into the Netravati river, the whole India was shocked. I too, my heart was saddened when I saw the picture of, that was the first time when I saw the image of Siddhartha Hegde. He was so young, and I thought, why did this young man took such a drastic decision of ending his life? So that really shocked me, and I told all my writers, why don't we write something on Siddhartha Hegde, who has really revolutionized the coffee culture in India. And everybody had a very good opinion on him, and the way he used to even take care of his employees were well applauded by the people. That's what I had heard. And why did he take such a drastic decision of getting into a river and ending his life? So that day, when all the writers wrote, they poured a lot of emotions into it. The Sparkians poured a lot of emotions into it. And then there was one of my friend who was 24 years old. He's from Nigeria. And he said, why don't we take up this project? He was so enamored and fascinated by those write-ups. And he said, why don't we take up a project on him? Why don't we write a biography? So I didn't know more about Siddhartha Hegde, and that day I decided, let me write something on a coffee cake. So let me weave a story around a coffee pruner. That decision we took, and so Anand came into existence.
Wonderful. So this is something which fascinates me, you know. Human beings are so consciously connected with each other, you see. If somebody feels happy, we feel happy. Somebody feels sad, we feel sad. And somebody is in a suffering, we feel a suffering. And I just, and I wonder how we are all consciously connected universally, right? Am I audible to the people at the back? Yeah. Okay. So I feel that this is such a wonderful thing that we all are consciously connected in certain way, and that this specific event from Siddhartha inspired you to take up the story, and the way you've woven the story all through, right? I mean, when you see it, you gave a different turn and twist to into the story of the protagonist, and then the ending that the protagonist goes through is really transformational in nature and is kind of what should I say? A kind of a lesson to a lot of entrepreneurs. So I think this part is too amazing, right? Though you saw or picked up your inspiration from Siddhartha himself, and you were really and you had this thing that you should bring out his story in some form. The way you kind of brought out the story and you gave it a picture towards the end with a positive note, that is a lot of lesson to a lot of entrepreneurs today. And I love this fact about the book. Could you also talk about wisdom a little more? Yeah, I hope he's your co-author in the book.
Yeah. My co-author was such a great human being, I can say, more than a writer. He was such a great human being. So usually all writers are those who get connected to the people. They are the ones. So Wisdom had a passion for writing books, especially fiction. He was drawn to fiction. So the complete story of Anand was mine, but the way he gave the final touches to my book is really amazing. He also created, I am very poor at creating the antagonist, and he created a character called Raku, who acts as a villain throughout the book, but in the last he realizes he is also a human. Every villain, there is some human nature inside. So this Raku, who was a villain throughout, at the end he comes to Siddhartha Hegde, he comes to Anand, and he confesses his faults, his mistakes, and he changes himself. He transforms, seeing the goodness of the protagonist, he changes himself and he becomes his car driver. So that kind of a loyalty you can see from a villainish state, he has transformed into a very good human being. That kind of a character was brought out by my co-author Wisdom. And the very sad part of the story is Wisdom is no more. He was 24 years old when he wrote this book, and he was a son to me. He always said, I'm going to come to India with my fiancé, and you as a mother should stand there and perform my marriage according to the Hindu rites. Whenever I was ill, he was always there. Mom, I should have been with you, next to you. These were the words that he used to tell me. So I don't know why God was so cruel on him, and somebody poisoned him, and that was the end of my co-author Wisdom.
He was from Nigeria.
He was from Nigeria, from a very remote place, from a very from a tribal place, I can say. But then what happened there, I really don't know. What was the story behind? So he wanted to come to me, and we both had a plan to write more and more fiction. So that was our plan. And
Sahana, it's also interesting to see this connect that you have with a writers guild which is in Nigeria, and then you start off your journey from there, and then pick up some cues about somebody interested in writing a novel, and then you connect with Wisdom. All this is so interesting to know, So you've just reached out to all different places that you could probably during your writing journey, and attracted a lot of talent, a good talent, I guess. Yeah. This particular character called Raku that you brought out, right? It's an interesting character. It's a very interesting character, no doubt about it. I also see a lot of other characters in the book. It could be a lot of women characters like Kaveri, Revati, Usha, and a couple of more characters, Ananya, and a couple of more characters, who are all women characters around the protagonist. And they all have their places. And they all have their places, and they kind of bring out a lot of transformation in the protagonist's life. So, not only women characters, right? You also have a lot of male characters in the book. Vikram, who is
Vikram Appaya,
who is father of
Anand
Appaya. And then you have Alma's father, who is Jose. Jose, and then a couple of other male characters like the driver for Vikram, who is Videsh. And then so all of these characters, they have their own places, who are strongly grounded in their characters, and they kind of influence Siddhartha's life in many different ways. And it's so nice to watch out play these characters in your novel, right? So how were you able to establish so many characters with the reader's connect, giving it a reader's connect? So what fascinates me is how you have given a reader's connect to all of these different characters, right? So I would really be interested to know how do you establish this reader's connect while writing?
It's a very interesting question. Anand is a character-driven book. So here the characters plays the main role, and it takes the story forward. So for any good novel, for that matter, connects the reader and the author, and it is through characters. Usually fiction, they say it is untruth. Fiction is not a fact. Fiction does not exist here on the ground. But then what is the reality that there is in the fiction? how do you bring realism into fiction is through the characters, because these characters are somebody who are in our neighborhood. We draw inspiration from the neighborhood people, or we may have drawn inspiration from the novels that we read. So that's how, when I created the Anand, when I created Anand, the first thing that came into my mind is I have to create a successful entrepreneur. So a successful entrepreneur means, for me, Anil Ambani came to my mind, then Siddhartha Hegde. Then in my own home, I can see entrepreneurs. My son is an entrepreneur. My brother is an entrepreneur. So my brother is also successful. He has started a multinational company. So all these, when I see these traits, so I myself empathized with a coffee crooner. How can a coffee king live? What may be his thoughts? How does he behave? A successful entrepreneur like Anil Ambani, how does he dress himself? How does he groom himself? How does he portray in front of the society? So these were some of the things that came into my mind, and I filled all those, I poured all those emotions into the character Anand. So that's how Anand, when you read the book, people have told me that for every entrepreneur should read this book. So how will the life of a successful entrepreneur be? What are the trials and tribulations that he faces, and still how he emerges out successful? This is a story of rise, fall, rise, fall. So that's how I created the character Anand in my book. So when coming to Alma, I told you we draw inspiration either from the real life characters or even from the characters which we read in our novels. The one novel which really fascinated me, which I really deep delved into the story, was one from Elizabeth Gilbert, a popular author. She is my favorite author.
Oh, she's my favorite author too.
Yeah, she has written a book called as Eat, Pray and Love,
That's
which
correct.
is turned into a movie also. But I was greatly enamored by a very fat book called as The Signature of Small Things.
Yeah, The Signature of All Things. It's a wonderful
The
book.
Signature of All Things.
Yeah.
That's a really wonderful book. I used to refer it. I used to just flip the book and come across a page, read the passage. It was so inspired, I could write something. So that was my inspiration.
Yeah, there's a character called
And
Alma
there is
there.
a character called Alma there. And the Alma of Elizabeth Gilbert's book, she is so grounded. And she is such a fantastic lady, where she without any of the influence, male influence, she herself becomes an independent, strong woman, and her research on algae is so deep.
Yeah.
Okay, and she reaches at a point where she creates the theory of evolution, and even before Darwin, she is the one who studied algae, and all that what Darwin said was told by Alma. And somehow at the year of when she was 99 years old, she breathes her last, but she was not able to portray this in front of the world. So that kind of a character I wanted in my book. So I named the heroine here as Alma. And I want see here also Alma, when Anand leaves for India, she is the one who takes care of her crippled father. She has a baby in the belly. She has no support. She has got a big estate to take care of. She has got the Harley estate there, which is exporting to the world. You know, Brazil is a place where 3/4 of the world's coffee is exported. to different countries. So this was the biggest estate in Brazil, and Carlos was a very big coffee planter in Brazil. That's how he knew all the remedies for any diseases. So that's why I created Alma character in my book.
Yeah, so I mean, every character in the book is very special and it has its own place, as I said, to influence the turn of events in every step of his life. Of course, it has done phenomenal job in influencing his turn of events. I would also like to see, how you brought out the journey of Anand from being a son of an entrepreneur to an entrepreneur himself, through his inner transformational journey, right? So you not only have brought out a lot of influence that is there from the outside that could, that could take him so far. You also have shown or depicted his inner journey. In a lot of ways, we see that he had some dreams, and then he wanted to stick to it. But then he sees different things in life that could add on value to this journey, and then you have brought out a lot of inner transformation as well. If you could just read us excerpt of some of the things that you brought out on probably different characters, one or two characters, I think it would be wonderful to hear.
I was talking to you about the reader-writers connect. I told you a good novel always connects the reader with the writer. So I also told you like how I can read out some of the scenes at any circumstances. How does people react? A person who has got lot of setbacks in his journey, how does he react when he comes across another setback? So that scene I'm going to read it to you. This is when Meera gives birth to a deformed child, a child with cerebral palsy, a mentally retarded child, and Anand has already lost his love, Alma, and after that disappointment, frustration, depression, this is the second setback he sees, that when Meera gives birth to a child. So I'm going to read this scene to you.
That is going to be a very emotional scene now.
Can I have my specs, please?
Yeah,
In the final months, Anand showed absolutely no interest in her pregnancy anymore. Meera saw that he didn't know how to deal with the bad news about their unborn baby. On the other hand, she was made of sterner stuff, and moreover, she had been a social worker during her college days. Empathy and compassion for social issues came naturally to her. Hence, she had a different take on children with special needs. She decided that no matter what happened, the child would have her by its side. On the day the baby was born, she appeared perfect and beautiful. Meera cuddled her daughter, knowing Anand's lack of interest, took the autonomous decision and named her Ananya. That night, Anand, in a rare moment of pity, looked heavenward and spoke to God. You have been so unkind to me. You took away Alma from me, and now you have given me a deformed daughter. I cannot bear this pain anymore. Hearing his painful words, on the balcony, Meera couldn't hold back her tears any longer. They spilled over her cheeks as a flood of fear and disappointment had welled up inside her. The tears running down her face didn't entirely surprise her, as she also dealt with the same fear and loss of control over life just like Anand. She couldn't help but wonder if she was crying for getting a child with special needs or for Anand's indifference towards the child. She was maddened by Anand's behavior, from not sticking close to her as he ought to be during her pregnancy, to not even looking at her or at Ananya since her birth. She felt very lonely and abandoned. Since she couldn't embrace Anand, she took Ananya out of the cradle and held her as tight as she could. When Anand returned from the balcony, she put the child back in the cradle and hugged him. Please, Anand, look how beautiful she is. Have patience and be happy. We will do everything for her. Thank God that He is so kind that our family is complete with Steve and her, she said, crying. Anand released himself from her embrace and slunk out of the room. Meera loved Ananya even more to make up for Anand's lacuna. Meera worried not just about Ananya, but countless other children out there with special needs who were either abandoned or ignored or misunderstood. These children needed help, and she had the power to do something. She could open a school that catered to their needs. With this determination growing, she determined to visit special schools to learn the modus operandi of special education. That night, several disheartening thoughts came to her mind. Anand, who was already troubled over his business expansion, didn't care to comfort her. As he lay on the couch in the sitting room with a restless mind, millions of thoughts ran through his head. He didn't know if he should just focus on pursuing the expansion of his coffee outlets or spend time with Meera and Ananya. Just then his phone rang. It was an unknown caller. So here you can see the behavior of human beings when there are setbacks. You can see Meera embracing the child, and she is a determined lady, and she wanted to serve the society. She wanted to contribute to such children. She wanted to start something, an NGO, and she starts an NGO called Abhaya Foundation also. She is so strong and determined, but at the same time Anand is broken, is disappointed because he had already lost his love. So this was a second setback to her, to him, which he couldn't take it. So, so this is how through the characters an author can connect to the reader. It is the emotions, it is the behavior, and that is what connects the author and the reader.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read another story or a scene where Anand is where the story shows the affinity of Anand to his mother. This was the last day where he had decided to end his life. As Anand began walking on the side of the bridge, thick black clouds covered the sky. The water of the Netravati below him appeared still. He tried to remember Basaveshwara's vachana that he had learned from Veeresh Mava. Kalabeda, Kolabeda, Kusiya Nudiyadu Beda, Muniya Beda, Anyarige Asahya Padabeda, Tanna Bannisa Beda, Idira Haliyadu Beda, Ide Antaranga Shuddhi, Ide Bahiranga Shuddhi, Ide Namma Kudala Sangama Deva Nodisuva Pari. Do not steal, do not kill, do not tell a lie, do not rage, do not loathe the other, do not brag of yourself, do not revile the opponent. This itself is the inner purity. This itself is a utter purity. This is the only way to win the Kudala Sangamadeva. Whispering these wisdom phrases to himself, he stepped closer to the edge of the bridge and gazed fondly at the flowing river beneath. He stood gazing at the watercourse. It was deep and it ran silently, but it was alive and had a purpose. There were no questionable depths of stagnation there, unlike his life. There were fish that leapt for flies. There were trees on both sides that stroked the water with their low flung branches, with their roots deeply settled in the river bank. There were kingfishers that sat anxiously on the trees looking for the prey. His mother and the story of Raja Harishchandra came rushing back into his mind. He missed his Amma. He wished he could see her again and listen to her inspiring tales of hope and rejuvenation. He wished to lie down with his head in her lap and cry quietly. He wanted to just listen and ask silly questions and wonder what happens next. He wanted to kneel at her feet and ask her forgiveness for not being there when she was on her deathbed calling his name. Inching closer to the edge, he wondered how it would feel if he fell down, deep down the waters. He would be carried away by its powerful currents. He wondered at its magnitude. He would probably drown and experience a slow, painful death. But he would be away from the harsh world and get to see his mother again. He also imagined a stranger catching him, a tall, handsome, well-built man, somebody recognizing Anand as a man of the people. Intrigued, he stood, his eyes fixed on the floor, his ears turned to the sound of rushing water. It looked like there was some kind of pressure to meet the sea, a never-ending place where all creatures could flourish. He felt that he must be where the river flows. He wanted to step into the river. Am I watered regularly from the river of life running from the abode of Gangama and the temple of Kaveri Amma? He felt that he flung himself into the river, he would get to know. All of a sudden, before Anand realized it, he felt like jumping down the bridge, which he did, apparently, falling 50 feet down and pierced through the surface of the river with a loud splash. He had always been afraid of water. This was the reason he never learned to swim. Now the fear had come alive in the strongest way. He paddled his hands in water, flapped and splashed. For a brief moment in which he re-emerged on the surface, he screamed for help. Rakesh was probably catching a quick nap in the car. Gradually, Anand began sinking into the bottom of the river. So this is how Anand tries to end his life. So here the emotions that he poured in for his mother or for the Kaveri Amma, the water, and he thinks about the unfathomable depths of the water. So this is how very common man when he wants to end his life, these are the thoughts. Whomever he is attached to, whomever he has affinity towards, he remembers those persons. It is a natural thing. So these real life elements I have brought into the book.
Yeah, I think in both these excerpts,
Yeah.
two women played out a major role. One is Meera, who happens to be his second wife, and then there is his mother, who has had a great impact in his life right from his childhood. So if I just skim through the entire book and read the entire book, you have a lot of women characters standing firmly to their grounds and inspiring him in different ways right from his childhood, whether it is his sister, his mother, his love interest, and then his who happens to be his first wife also, and then there is the second wife, Meera. So these are very powerful women characters. So did you think of this as very important for taking him through his journey and that is why you brought different women characters specifically who have had played extensive roles in transforming his journey from being one to another in his own internal journey also, right? Meera plays a very strong role in showing up that empathy is too much important in life than what he perceived himself as, right, as a successful entrepreneur. So she tries to, subtly she kind of brings out that thing that empathy is very important in life. So did you think of these women characters? These are very powerful and strong characters. So did you think of these?
See, I'm always inspired by women characters who are very strong, who can stand by themselves, and who can take their family, the society along or contribute towards them. Because most of the women, even Kaveri here, though she is a housewife, she's a very strong lady. The lessons that she gives to Anand in the form of Ramayana, Mahabharata, Harishchandra, that itself, she knows how to bring up a child. She knows parenting. So she is a very strong woman, because this land itself, Coorg, is known for bravery. So many people, even in the military, if you can see, there are a lot of people who come from this brave land, Coorg.
Right.
So even women here are not very suppressing or very subtle and very sober. These women also had their role to play. So when you take either Kaveri or Meera is also from Coorg, Revati is again from Coorg. She also inspires Anand in many ways in taking his business forward. And you can also see the role of Alma. I've already told you why I created Alma, because I was inspired by the other book, and that's how I created Alma, though she is from Brazil. Coming into the Indian enclosure and staying with Anand for so long, she also adapts herself some of the qualities that an Indian woman have. She doesn't want to. Usually they say women abroad, women from Brazil, they are so fast going that once Anand leaves from there, he could have married another person. So she doesn't do that. She says, my whole life I have kept aside for Anand and my baby. So this is again a strong character.
Yeah. So
Then,
right. So this.
yeah.
So she is from Brazil, and this is a very strong character coming out of Alma. So if you just look at that, she and her family has a background of coffee plantations and then processing and all of it stuff. You also happen to bring out a lot of Brazilian culture along with this. So did you have to do a lot of research around that? Because I see a lot of details around there, something like samba dance or different flavors of coffee itself. So and also you bring out different ways of how to take care of the plantation itself in so different ways, and different medicines for the diseases that it could encounter and all of it. So did you have to do a lot of research around it? How did you go about it? Did you have first-hand information through Sahana? How did you go about this Brazilian culture thing? This entire thing has come very well. Yeah.
I did some research on the internet itself.
Okay.
I did not read any book on Brazil or anything. It is only through internet I collected some of the information. And you already know, when I was talking about food, the first thing came to my mind was Brazil. Because Brazil is I already told you, it exports 3/4 of the world coffee.
And also, very similar to Indian Indianness.
Yeah, no miles apart. Okay, Portugal and Brazil are miles apart. But there is a common culture there, the coffee culture. Okay, so maybe in Brazil, how coffee started was somebody brought a sample there, and then it is all coffee. Brazil is all coffee. And when it comes to India, even during the harvest season, coffee harvest, they usually sing songs and sing songs on coffee. And they celebrate the harvest. And that day, the all men will be in a dress called kupya and shalya, where the women will adorn themselves in red sari and with ornaments, and they do a particular kind of kurki dance. So these kind of culture in Kurk, I have, and also I have in detail brought the Kurgi culture even during the marriage of Meera and Anand. It is completely, and all the stories behind the marriage. Why only mother should tie the Mangala Sutra to the, and not the husband. So in our usual families, in our usual South Indian marriages, it is the husband who ties the knot. But here the mother ties the Mangala Sutra. Why? There is a story behind. So I have researched all these stories and why they cut those 7 plantains, the banana trees before the marriage. So there is a story behind that. So all these stories are brought into the book. And even when you come to the ornaments the bride wears, all the ornaments, the names of the ornaments are all I have included in the book. And even the cuisine for that matter, what is the cuisine of a Kurgi family? How do they drink and dance together? So these kind of things are brought in here. Similarly in Brazil, when a guest comes to the Brazil home, it is the cafezino that they offer. Similarly in South Indian houses, when a guest comes, it is usually over a cup of coffee we chat with the guests. So that is again a common culture between the coffee culture between the Brazil and Kodugu. So I was greatly impressed by Brazil also. So you can also see the hibiscus flowers which is grown in the Kodugu estate. When Anand goes there to Harley estate, he also sees the line of hibiscus flowers. So again, there is some kind of a similarity, though they are miles apart. So that's how, and the samba dance, which is a very, very popular dance, music dance of Brazil. And here Alma is passionate about the dance, over coffee.
Right, and when she meets him, I also have.
And I've also mentioned all the instruments that the Brazilians use, like the coelho bells, the drums, and all the names I have researched and I have included.
What really caught my attention was when Alma meets. I mistakenly also sometimes think it is Siddhartha in the book. It was actually Anand. So what actually caught my attention there was a philosophical bent to what Alma told to Anand in one of the instances where she shows some 5 petals, a flower with 5 petals. And then she brings out the 5 elements of philosophy there: love, wisdom, I think compassion, and a couple of other things there, right? So it is integrity, wisdom, and all of it. So it doesn't matter where we are, in which part of the world. Humans, it doesn't matter in which part of the world humans are, but the humanity remains the same. And
all over the world,
and that
human beings are the
same
same.
in that part,
The emotions that they carry, or
so that
the
brings
behavior
that brings
at
the
certain
reader,
circumstances is almost the same all throughout the world.
It connects to the reader so instantly when she initially talks about those 5 elements. In 5 petals, she shows the flower and then talks about the 5 elements. I think that's very interesting to read. Okay, so it looks like probably we covered most of the things. At least I could cover a lot of things. But then, if I have to ask one last question, which is the biggest for me, is what is the biggest message to a reader? What is what according to you is the biggest message to the reader? I know you've kind of summarized here and there in all of these different questions, But the final message to the reader, how would you put it across?
See, I have given a tagline called The Brew of Dreams, Passion and Love. Okay, so what is passion? I have shown the passion, the Anand's love, intense love towards coffee, because he was brought, his childhood was spent with the coffee community. He was a coffee grower, his father was a coffee grower, his forefather was a coffee grower. So here, what the obsession for something takes over talent. Anand is not a very talented person. He's not very intelligent. He's not very wise. He doesn't have all those trades or anything. But the obsession that he had for coffee, that made him grow. So it is always not the talent that takes you to greater heights. It is the passion. It is the love for something that takes you to greater heights. That makes you do something.
Right.
If you even want to become a writer,
Right.
even though you are a struggling writer, don't know how to even bring words together, if you have made up your mind to become a writer, you will see that you will learn all the nuances, the process of becoming a writer. So that is passion. So I've always said that passion that takes over the talent. So this is one message that I have given here. And when it comes to love and passion, it is always the love which takes over passion. That is what I have shown in the last. With passion, he chases well, he chases success. But in the last, what does he crave for? He still feels his life is not fulfilled. He is not complete. That is how Anand feels in the last stages. And when he sees Hari Babu and Lakshmi showering love on a deformed girl, and though they are from a very poor family, the amount of bondage that the family has, he has missed all that bondage because he ignored Meera, he ignored Ananya. So the same type of a girl, a deformed girl, and a family bondage, when he sees, he really gets to think. He goes within and thinks about what all happened in his life and why did he even ignore such a beautiful girl. And he learns that humanity is more important than wealth or success or whatever he faced. Even in the enforcement directorate, the trauma that he faced, the questioning and the trauma that he faced and the disappointment that he had, for which he wanted to end his life, he thinks that it was not worth. There are a bigger life. There is a bigger life, more than money, more than wealth. There is a bigger life to chase. So that's how I'll just read a script from that incident. As Anand began walking on the side of the bridge, not this.
That would be the excerpt.
Anand watched her keenly. Usha had a twisted mouth, a deformed nose, and a small notch on her forehead. Clearly, she was both physically and mentally challenged. Anand pitied the poor family to be saddled with such a girl, and he ached for the girl for not having resources to address at least some of her problems. He wanted to tell Meera about the little girl and provide whatever help he could through her foundation. The next morning, Anand watched in wonder as Lakshmi cuddled Usha, kissed her, cleaned her, fed her, and pulled her closer to her bosom. Anand felt guilty for not showing any such parental love to his daughter. This feeling strengthened when Hari Babu entered and spoke to Usha in some coded baby language and started playing with her. Usha responded with a smile, kicking both her legs in joy. Anand closed his eyes as realization hit him hard. What sort of a man would pursue his business and forget to love his family unconditionally? Anand stayed with the question. He never looked at Ananya properly, let alone connect with her. The love he had was not love at all, as it was based on money, looks, and other exterior things. His love was not based on the essence of Ananya or Meera, but rather on the aspects that enveloped them. Did I love Meera because I was away from Alma? Did I marry her because Alma left the world? Did I stop loving Meera because she gave birth to a child with special needs? Did I ever connect with Meera like how I did with Alma? Was she just a substitute for Alma? And was the bond not with her soul? He asked himself a series of questions for which the answers were within him, within his soul. His emotions and feelings changed straight away when the doctor revealed Ananya's condition even before she was born. As a father, he could have connected with Ananya. She was his daughter first, and her physical aspect was secondary. He could have looked past her physical attributes. After seeing how genuinely, deeply Haribabu and Lakshmi connected with Usha, in spite of her disability, he strongly felt like looking at the heart of Ananya, looking at her soul. He wanted to connect with her on a new level. If I was a child with disabilities, would my parents have treated me the way I treat Ananya? He thought for a second and shuddered. When he scored the highest marks in the class, Vikram and Kaveri were proud of him. But was their relationship based only on his marks and his success in academics? Has he not secured good marks? Had he not become more successful, would they have not loved him less? They would not be as proud as they were after his success, but definitely their love would remain the same. Anand felt and realized that love was not based on what children do or don't do. It is based on who they are at the core. He felt proud of Meera and her efforts to bring up Ananya single-handedly. Her time and attention were devoted to Ananya almost constantly. He never realized that even Meera needs and deserves to be cared for. He never asked how she managed alone. He never took her on a date night after she delivered their daughter, let alone sit and enjoy a movie together. She was not jumping over tall buildings or sprinting faster than a bullet train, but she was no less than a superwoman. These were Anand's thoughts about Meera and Ananya. Every day, each day and night, she handled circumstances that he or any other regular parent for the fact would think impracticable. Meera alone deals with Ananya's outbursts and melts down. I wonder how does she manage not to have an outburst or melt down herself? He thought and heaved. She encouraged Ananya to do things that she could not ever do otherwise and never gave up hope. She is a doctor, a therapist, a nurse, a friend, and a confidant to their child. Anand was super busy with his business and his life revolved around meetings and schedules. While everything on his calendar came foremost, he never realized that it was also important to make time to play with his children, laugh with his wife, and just enjoy spending quiet time with his family. After seeing Usha's unconditional love towards her parents, he wanted to read storybooks to his children before putting them to sleep, hug them tightly and spend time with them. He wanted to make sweet memories outside of his coffee business. He realized that being the dad of a child with special needs need not build or change his existence. Being the parent of her was a part of his existence, but that itself was not all his identity. He was beyond and more than that. He felt Ananya, like Usha, is extraordinary with her own distinct strengths and weaknesses. Now he was no more scared to fight for his daughter and her needs. He would support Meera in all her endeavors. He might not be an expert in dealing with Ananya's disabilities, but he can be an expert dad to his daughter. The true realization was washing away the guilt, replacing it with a renewed sense of purpose. If Hari Babu, a man with few resources, could be such a great family man, so could he. He decided to devote a portion of his wealth to the foundation run by Meera and help her to start more branches across the state. This morning taught him a new definition of happiness, love and compassion. Or maybe it wasn't a new definition, it was new merely because he had not listened to Meera when she had given him that. Now he was ready for Bengaluru and the world. More importantly, he was ready to love his family. So this was
This is a beautiful inner transformation.
yeah. This was the inner transformation that Anand went through. He contemplated his own behavior, his own, how he dealt with Meera and his family.
If I just look through the portrayal part of it, right, it looks as if a person was too full at the beginning of his journey, and then he kind of lost a lot and became totally empty, and then craves so much that he again,
Wants to bond with the family.
bonds with the family. This aspect is coming out so good in the book, right? So towards the end, you bring out this transformation, looking at Usha, and it's so. We find our inspirations in so different ways, right? So in our lives, and being attentive to the people we meet or to the circumstances that we are in. We don't know how our lives can change, and it's not possible for someone to predict it either. But then when you meet people across situations that you deal with, it can have a strong impact on transforming our lives in ways that we cannot think. And this is being portrayed wonderfully in the book.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was, it was a very fulfilling conversation with you. Maybe we could open it to the audiences for
Yes.
a few more questions.
Yes, please. If you have any questions, you can please shoot.
Yeah. Oh, this one, the little kid there.
I did have questions, but then I feel like you have answered it throughout the conversation.
Okay.
Like they have been very well.
I do have a question actually. So, last time when you read it in Bharatiya City Mall, when I was there, I heard that unfortunately the co-author of this book is not there with us. So, in his perspective, if you can imagine and tell us about how does he define Anand as a character?
See, I told you already, you were not here. I told about Niposhi wisdom. He was a great human being. More than a writer, he was a very good human being. So that's how we have brought Anand also as a very good. See, there are some flaws in Anand. Actually, the credit for creating Raku. See, the complete story is mine, but I didn't know how to create an antagonist. So it was Wisdom who created the antagonist Raku. And it is a wonderful character that he has created. How because of fear of somebody who bosses over him, who bullies over him, only of utter fear that his son would be killed, he becomes a villain to Anand's family. He tries to kidnap Anand. He tries to tell them that Anand is already dead. And that's how the family goes into a very devastated, in a sorrowful state. It's a melancholy for the family, the way, the sadness. All this Wisdom's contribution. And he was a very good writer. especially he was drawn to fiction. He wanted to write more and more books with me. He wanted to come to Bengaluru. He wanted to stay with me. He wanted to bring his fiancée also. He wanted me to be the mother and perform his marriage according to Hindu rites. So that was his craving for books. When he knew that I have a writing community, he also wanted to start a writing community in Nigeria. So that's how he started Oledio Books. So I helped him out to build the website and things like that. And I don't know, God was very unkind. God was very cruel. And he took away from us. Otherwise, I told you, he was a very good human being. And I mean, he didn't know so much of the culture which is in India. Like for example, I was telling her, he didn't know that a lady can wear a sari, how a sari is worn by a lady in India. He always thought the sari is a headdress. Okay, so when he wrote, so these were the things that came up.
I had this one opportunity to interact with Wisdom during our Spark meet, I think. It was one of our Spark events, retreat kind of session.
No, he was there for my launch.
He was there for the launch, and he was also part of the Spark Writers
Spark
Retreat.
Writers Retreat.
I had this opportunity. Yeah, so
He taught them nuances
wonderful
of
writer.
fiction writing. Wonderful writer. He
was just 24.
I mean, he was a Nollywood screenplay writer for many of the Nollywood films, Nigerian films. He has written scripts, and for one Hollywood film also he has written script. So his English was really, I mean, good. My English was very raw. The finish that he brought to the book, the credit goes to Wisdom. He's no more. I don't know how people poison him and what kind of people were there around him. I really don't know. It was a very sad state of affairs. And his father, the day when he died, his father was really, he was broken. I could see the way he cried. He couldn't speak anything. He said, "I'll speak to you later about this." He wanted these books to be, very popular in Nigeria also. His father was a politician who had a number of wives, multiple wives. Okay, and so he had a family problem also, I think. Some of the family problem. I don't know what really happened there. Nobody is there to tell me the story, what really happened there. And he was so much drawn to India, to my family, to me. He has told everybody there, I had gone to India and I have come back. He never came to India, but he already has told his sister, fiancé, everybody that I've already met my mom there. That is what Wisdom was.
any more questions?
Any more questions? Yeah.
See, anybody can be an author, but we'd like to know more about your journey from being an author to a publisher.
Okay.
What motivated you or inspired you to become a publisher?
Yeah. When I started my writing guild, I saw so many budding authors. When I started Spark Igniting Minds, I started a website also for them, and they could contribute to the website. And one day, one of the Sparkian, one author, Gehna Mehra, her name is Gehna Mehra, she told, why don't we start a magazine or a e-magazine kind of a thing where all these authors can contribute and we can make it into a magazine. So when she said, so I gave them a topic on spirituality. There is a lot of difference between religion and spirituality. So I said, why don't we write articles on spirituality? So then they all wrote. And then it was so beautifully they had written their own views, their own perspectives on spirituality. Then I thought, why don't we convert this into a book? So I just took all their articles and then I made a book out of it. And Sri Ravi Shankar was the person who launched my book. and the name of the book is Soul Surgeon. Soul Surgeon. Okay? Soul stops. Surgeon is a small, brief period. Okay? So that's how I got. There was one of my Sparkians by name Aparna. She used to give beautiful titles for all our anthologies. And after that one book, when I got the Soul Surgeon, there was an after that book they were so excited. All Sparkians were so excited. They started, sharing it everywhere. And then I gave a topic like something contributing to the society called as corruption. And we titled it as Delete Log of Shutdown Corruption. And then we thought, who could be the best person to launch this book? And then we finally went to Kiran Bedi, and she launched the book.
She's the best person to do that.
Yeah, because she had fought. She was with Anna Hazare. She was almost, she fought against corruption. So when there was a mass rally against corruption, it was Kiran Bedi who took the leading role. And I usually get drawn to women more than Kiran Bedi is a very strong woman. So that's how my second book came in, and we started publishing anthologies. And then I got confidence. Why not I become a publisher? So I even took a GST, then established my publishing industry and started publishing individual books also, other than our anthologies. We brought in so many anthologies. One was on mental, how to help these mentally depressed people. That was one of the topics. And the other topic was relationships. The relationships is going hayway. Nowadays, especially these youth, they don't know what is the meaning of relationship, and they don't compromise. Their ego plays, and there are a lot of divorces which is happening in the country. So I thought a book on relationship was the best remedy for these things, and everybody wrote. It was a mixture of fiction and non-fiction. Some
Labyrinth
of
of Relationships, are you talking of?
Huh?
Labyrinth of Relationships?
Labyrinth of
Yes, I've read that book too.
So that's how I started.
Sahana, story through my eyes. You should talk
Yeah.
about that. I think.
And there was one more anthology, and this was an idea by my close friend Kirtana Venkatesh. She said, why don't we bring in the mythological stories? Okay, so a character in a mythology, when he sees another person, what is Rama in the eyes of Sita? Okay, what is Radha in the eyes of Bhima? Something like that. A mythological character, through her eyes, how can we develop a story? It was not only Indian mythology, we covered Greek mythology also. And they were untold stories. It was unheard stories. And they came up with such a beautiful stories, which we never knew. And Kirtana came up with a story like Sita was the daughter of Ravana. Okay, that I know most of us know. Maybe most of them don't know about this. That Sita was daughter of Ravana.
Was it totally fictional? I think there was an element of truth also in some cases, probably through researches and other things, that the characters could be seen in a different way too, right? It was not totally fictional, right? Was it totally fictional?
It was totally fiction. Totally fiction, and they were all stories from history and mythology. And it was a very good book, and almost all the copies were sold immediately. That was
I think that's
great
too
book.
much demand now too.
Yeah.
Even
so people
Anand-
are asking to go for a second edition also.
Even Anand is a fantastic book. We talk of self-help books and things like that, but in every aspect of the book, I have found some message for a reader. Like for example, we are talking of Anand, who belongs to a very royal family, and not actually royal, but from a very well-to-do family, a rich family. But his ego is so low that he is willing to learn from Viresh. Throughout, Viresh is his mentor, and he respects the character Viresh a lot. So, for the reader, like when I was reading the book, it taught me that however big we might be, but learning is available everywhere. and we should not keep our ego in between, but keep learning from whomever and wherever.
He was one among the laborers, you know.
Yes.
With all his people, with all the coffee laborers, he also chugged the coffee trees. He picked berries. Okay, he was such a down to. He had worked from the down level and he has reached the top. He became the second wealthiest person of India. So that is how I have brought from a very, very humble Anand to.
Yes.
I had the same observation when
Yes, even when we talk of the character Alma, she's so empathetic.
Yeah.
In spite of the circumstances that she's going through, she has the she just releases Anand. She says, "Go back. You belong there," and that was something which talked a lot about unconditional love.
Yeah.
So she was so unconditional. Even now, when I talk of it, it gives me goosebumps. These are all very beautiful messages which you have conveyed throughout. I can keep talking of them because I learned a lot from the book. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sweet of you.
Sahana, from being in NCC to being an author to being a publisher, I also heard that you take English classes,
Yeah.
and there are so
Very
many other things. You're connecting so many authors. You are a multitasking person. There's so much of diversity. How do you balance all these roles, and how do you also balance your family?
There's nothing that I do. Maybe I do some, whatever comes to my mind. I do productively in the morning. I spend some time. What best I can do? What can I contribute? These are the things that keep running in my mind. I wrote a poem recently. Always in our mind, what counts is, do you have it in you? Do you have it in you? Do you have it in you? Do you have that courage? Do you have that strength? Do you have a passion to do something? So that kind of those words, those phrases, it is from the military, women joining the armed forces. So they have given that catch line, do you have it in you? So that keeps pounding in my mind, So
That is fantastic, Sahana. That's a lesson to be learned for the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Preeti.
I'll just probably try to complete it. I don't know, I can do it do you have it in you to take on the greater interest of the society? Probably is what you're looking at every day, I think. Because she gets the people all across in different, from different backgrounds and looks at the larger group, right? So I think that's what
I don't know, I haven't contributed much in the society.
That is your being humble. No, that is your being humble.
Yeah, there's a long,
There's
long
always
way
an
to
attempt.
go. I haven't done anything much. But then I'm bringing out my second book. I want to announce this in front of the second book is Are You Smart with Words? This is my second book. So this is a puzzle book. Okay. So I have given poetic clues to every word. I have chosen around 100 words, and for each word I have given two clues. Okay, they are not cryptic clues like crossword or something like that. It's a poetic clue, and you learn a lot of vocabulary from that. You can pick up vocabulary because there are so many words, equal words, the synonyms, in those poetry. And it's a good book for even children from 14 years of age. It's a good book to solve that. So people, I used to play this game on some of the groups, and the people loved it. If they get that word, they were so happy that they were jumping itself that I got the word. So that kind of a book.
I can vouch for the part of the book and I enjoyed playing.
Yeah, can't wait for its launch.
So 16th, June 16th, I'm launching the book, and I welcome all of you, those who are here to come for that small launch. My mother will be cutting the ribbon that day.
So you have a lot of support from your mother and family.
Yeah, my family is very supportive. So whatever I do, my family is very supportive. I have even told in one of my videos, my son is a great support for me. When I lost my husband, he stood by me and my daughter, and he said, now no more, whatever has happened has happened. Okay, it's a past. Yes, we have that pain in our heart that we lost, that I lost my husband, they lost their father. That pain was solidified in us. But still we should go on with life, you know. So that time my son was the one who said, let us pursue our interest. Let Prakriti do whatever she likes. Let me put more of energy into my stances production, and you do whatever you like. So this is how, and he taught me some principle called as 80-20 principle, you know. And he also told me how important time is. Okay, so we should not waste time. That lesson he gave me, that really worked magically.
Can you elaborate a little on the 80-20?
I don't know, I call my son, he can. So he says, if you put 20% of effort, you should get 80% results. Okay, not 80% of effort and 20% results. So you should focus more. So that is what his message to my family. So they are a great support, and I've got a lovely daughter-in-law, and she is also very spirited, and the way she looks after the family, and also she is an entrepreneur. She is very, very a powerful lady who can manage things, you know. She manages very well. So, that's how I'm happy about my family.
Thank you for all the
Thank
personal
you,
sharings
thank
also,
you.
Sahana.
Yeah.
It is so inspiring to see all these different characters in your life. Yeah,
Okay.